Here's a what the H question that Caleb's been trying to get me to believe for weeks, and I fought him on it. I said, no, you're off base. There's money to be had, and that television contract isn't it. But Caleb, I think with the SEC struggles in the college football playoff, I'm going to fall in line behind you. I think you're talking about there are players at Texas, there are players at other schools that, in particular, Tennessee was recruiting, that are making plays. And to me, that's as simple as bidding for the elite players, because we can talk about a 3-star Caleb goes because he's close to home, he's a legacy player, blah, blah, blah. But if you're one of the elite guys like Mike Matthews, or who are the others, Ryan Gibson that we talked about earlier in the program? I'm sorry?
Ryan Williams and Amari Jefferson. You're talking about portal guys?
Well, no. I was talking about guys that have had good playoff runs recently.
Oh, Jeremiah Smith.
Jeremiah Smith would be one, and then Ryan Gibson was the other one that's been done pretty well, right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so I think you're seeing that the other schools were able to spend more. And that to me is troubling. And I know Texas has one of those players, Gibson, that we talked about. But here's the bottom line with him is that I don't know that Texas is a comparable SEC program right now, because their athletic budget is far beyond. And I have real concern for the first time, especially with this TV contract that's coming up, that's not going to pay SEC teams nearly as well. I have serious questions about the SEC being the preeminent conference in the nation 2, 3, 4 years from now. What the H? I'll say it. The SEC is about to get surpassed if they don't do something pretty quickly.
Yes. And here's what I think is really scary that has happened. Now, I'm not so sure that the Big Ten was actually better than the SEC this year. The SEC was overrated. I think the seeding with the college football playoff format was so screwy that, and then Georgia's quarterback got hurt. I mean, just a bunch of different things happened, and Indiana really didn't belong in the playoff to begin with.
I think the Big Ten was better, but not decidedly better as it looked in the playoffs.
I still think going all the way 1 to 16 or 1 to 18, when you get to the 6 to 11, the SEC is way better at 6 to 11 than the Big Ten is at 6 to 11. Even though and people are going to bring up the bowl games, but guys, these bowl games don't actually mean anything anymore, so you can't judge that. My point is this, and you're seeing this with the transfer portal, guys. It's not about the money the Big Ten has right now, or the Big Ten schools, excuse me. Because, this was the first year of the contracts for both leagues, and the Big Ten teams got paid out way more. What it's about is the money, and this is the underrated part about NIL. It's the money you can promise kids on the back end. Okay, so you can go to a kid.
Clarify me. I didn't follow you. Clarify that for me.
You tell a kid, and you can even get it in writing too on paper. I can pay you this year, but I can pay you this in 2 years, and I can pay you this in 3 years.
Well, I would hope everybody's doing an escalating contract.
Yes, but the Big Ten has that's where the Big Ten has leverage over, the Big Ten schools have leverage over the SEC. They're about to get, every single Big Ten school is about to walk home with roughly $10 to $15 million in revenue per year because of TV deals. I haven't even done the math in my head, but let's just do it real quick, guys. Per year, the Big Ten is going to bring home $700 million in the SEC. Now just divide that by 18. And that's how much more money the Big Ten schools are bringing home than the SEC schools. If you just divide 700 million by 18, it's roughly, I undershot it. The Big Ten is bringing home, I'm not even kidding you guys, 35 to 40 million per school more than the SEC schools.
That's roughly what I was told schools were spending on NIL. So
an entire NIL budget
Yeah, you're essentially saying you have another NIL budget.
Think of that for a minute. Think of that. Every Big Ten school now has a separate NIL budget on top of the SEC's already NIL budget.
Well,
now,
yeah, and we kind of got into a little bit of a gray area, but there has to be some sort of salary cap, which leads to some sort of union, some sort of something, right?
I don't think the Big Ten's going to agree to it. This is the Big Ten sees blood. This is their chance to wreck the SEC and be the premier conference over the next 7 to 10 years. And this college football playoff may put it on steroids because, look, like I said, I still think the SEC was a tougher conference, but let's just ask this question. The allure of recruiting, of half of the lure of recruiting was the name brand of the SEC. You're going to play in the SEC, right?
Mm-hmm. Especially for Southern kids.
Yes, exactly. You don't think with the narrative that's out there right now with what just happened in this playoff that allure died just a little bit?
Yes.
For the Big Ten?
Now, the question is, did it hit a bump in the road like when Nebraska beat Tennessee or when, Florida State won a championship or Miami?
Or the first year of the bump in the road, the first year of the 14 playoff. That seemed like a bump. That seemed like, I don't know if you remember that, but in the first year of the playoff, remember Ohio State won it. Alabama got knocked out early. This was 10 years ago. And everybody thought the Big Ten was about to overtake them because the Big Ten had Jim Harbaugh coming to the SEC. James Franklin, Urban Meyer was still there. And so everybody thought the Big Ten was about to take another leap. Michigan State was still rolling. So it could just be a bump in the road. But like the difference between that and this is we were just analyzing coaches and I'm analyzing money. Guys, I'm sorry. Money outweighs everything when it comes to success.
So you're saying these are at least a couple of bumps in the road and maybe a washed out highway. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes. If you like, how are the SEC teams supposed to compete? I mean, you just talk, Dave has a great column up now, guys. We talked about it earlier. And Dave, I just want to go ahead and ask you, do you think that Tennessee, because Dave thinks, guys, Tennessee's 10-2 record doesn't look as good anymore because of how down the SEC looked this year?
No, I think it's very average. I mean, you've got your two biggest wins are Alabama and Florida, and traditionally that's great, but those are two teams that make the college football playoff. I'm not even sure that Alabama was close in the committee's mind. So, yeah, I mean, those are your two wins. I mean, those are your two big wins.
And Tennessee got and part of it was it wasn't playing in the SEC. It was that they got an easy SEC draw, not like Indiana.
They got an easy SEC draw, and with their buys were well placed.
Yes. So I think that there was a really big concern for Tennessee and the SEC going forward with this, even this year notwithstanding. But, the SEC flames out in these bowl games and in the college football playoff. The transfer portal is running wild. And the Big Ten is sitting here saying every single one of our schools has another NIL budget. And here's the crazy part. Meanwhile, SEC basketball is loaded. The SEC is a better basketball conference than a football conference right now, guys, if you look at it.
The SEC will be the dominant program 3 to 5 years. I'm sorry. The SEC will be the dominant conference in college football 3 to 5 years from it. Will you bank on it or not? Brought to you by Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. I'm
going to say bank on it. I'm going to side with the SEC that the SEC will still be the preeminent conference 3 to 5 years from now. And I'm saying that because I think still at the end of the day, there are more of those 315 to 330 pound guys that can move around in the South than there is anywhere else in the nation. And I think more times than not, no matter what a Penn State or a Southern California might offer them, they want to stay in the South. So, but I do think I do think the gap will be a lot closer. I mean, let's face it, over the past 20 years, it hasn't been close. Alabama's dominated. Georgia's come upon the scene. I think it's going to be a lot closer. Caleb, bank on it. The SEC will be the preeminent conference in college football in 5 years. Yay or nay?
Nay. And I think the Big Ten has better leadership at the top. The SEC is a better brand. The SEC by far is a better brand. But Dave, you know this as well as I do. Sometimes the brand is immune to who's running it. For instance, people say Roger Goodell's a great commissioner because of how he's grown the NFL in popularity. No, he's not. You and I could have made the NFL that good in popularity. It's such a good product. It's almost impossible to screw up.
Yeah, you've got people lining up to do the NFL Sunday ticket. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
They probably made a bad move signing that 20-year agreement with DirecTV, to be real honest with you. Coming up this day, or stat of the day, coming up.
Well,
yes, go ahead.
Yes, I just had to point out, but the leadership of the SEC versus the Big Ten. Guys, I keep telling you guys this. Greg Sankey's experience is he was an engineering major, and then he worked in compliance with the league office. He's never had experience. He's taken over the SEC with no experience in media rights and things like that. Tony Petitti was a business major. He worked at MLB Network, helped launch that. He's launched multiple TV networks. Now he's working at the Big Ten. He understands the TV market better. He's not done outsmarting Greg Sankey. I'm just telling you guys that.